Hi there, Joe Fisher here. As I sit in traffic on the 71 freeway, I think it's a good time for me to touch on what has become America's ridiculous transportation / traffic system. And of course, I'm not even going to touch on public transportation, which should have been a priority 100 years ago, as is in Europe, where we could have efficient public transportation where we all wouldn't have to be stuck in traffic in these cars in the first place. But yeah, so I'm just going to ignore that and just pretend that, you know, our way of life with cars is just something that is unquestionably the best thing for us. So what is wrong with our traffic system? The biggest thing that I see is our red lights and stop signs. I mean, let's talk about stop signs. I've seen in my 30 some years of growing up, I've seen the proliferation of stop signs. What does that do? It basically, and then you see police who, you know, get you scared to not make a complete stop. You make a California stop, they're likely going to stop you if they see you. So they're enforcing what that is, and I'll get to why this is. They're enforcing mindless laws upon us, while the big movers and shakers and criminals at the top, you know, have no enforcement. While we, the minions, the little guys, the slaves, the wage slaves, have to obey every ridiculous regulation given to us by this giant monkey on our back, which in fact makes us hate regulation, which in fact makes us a proponent of big business, because we don't like regulation. So we say, hey, the big businesses should, you know, banks shouldn't be regulated either, you know, whether by design or just by good luck that's happened to them. And I want to touch on real quick, a lot of the regulation that big business cries about was in fact legislated by them in ways in which they can just hire one of their lawyers to get around all the loops, while the little guy coming up gets screwed. So it's a way for them to actually take away competition. But that's another thing. So anyways, the traffic system and stop signs. So we got to come to a complete stop. What does that do? That wastes gas, that wastes brakes, that wastes our time. You know, why do they give us a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit and then give us all these stop signs? Why not just a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, where we're not continually accelerating, going through the transmission, the gears, having to put on the brakes, and basically what it is doing is rewarding the person that slams on the brakes, is unsafe, and then speeds up excessively to 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, and comes to the next stop sign. When we could just put it at 20 miles an hour, keep everyone moving at a safe speed, and not have to create all these back and forth stops. You know, what happened to yield signs? I've seen the depletion of yield signs. That you know, in older neighborhoods there used to be a lot of, or there may still be in some, I'm sure there is, I see them now and then, but in newer neighborhoods it's all about stop signs. Everyone has to stop. Completely ridiculous. So the only people that benefits basically is the petrol industry, because we're wasting more gas as we completely, unless you have a hybrid, which, you know, as regenerative braking, you're losing all that momentum, that wasted energy. It's turning into brake dust and heat, and then you have to generate it again by giving gas. So anyways, stop signs as opposed to yield signs and reduced speed limits are fucking ridiculous, and the police monitoring them and making sure that you do in fact come to a complete stop as opposed to a couple miles an hour. When you look at you know, the totalitarian, when you look at the big picture, that is ridiculous as well. So let's go on to the traffic lights. Okay, what's ridiculous about traffic lights? Well, basically, you're going, and when you see a yellow light, you don't know when a yellow light's coming, and when you see it, you basically nearly have to slam on your brakes to avoid the possibility of catching a red light. Now, what should they have? Well, they could have a number of things. They could have a countdown in place to a yellow light, but maybe not everybody's eyes would see that. Well, they could have a set of blinking lights. They could have more than 3 lights. They could start installing other colors, just one other color, to let you know that, within 30 seconds the light's going to turn yellow. And what does that do? It gives you time to let off the gas and just coast up to the signs, so you're not wasting energy, you're not wasting brakes, you're not wasting gas, you're not producing so much waste generally. You're saving your car, you're saving your car's components. The longevity of your car would increase, everything would increase. Your gas, your resources, and even your time, because instead of having to slam on your brakes and coming to a complete stop, you can just coast and possibly catch the green light, and you're still, whatever, say at 15 miles an hour, and you can continue on your way. So just right there, the traffic system, you have all these, I've also seen the proliferation of protected left-hand turn lanes, whereas in Fullerton, California, the city right there was actually a little bit forward-thinking, or I should say a lot relative to the rest, and they put in blinking left-hand turn lanes. So they're blinking yellow, so that means you can turn on your own risk, but it is not a protected left-hand turn at that time, but it also can be at other times. Other ways to moderate traffic. Another thing they do in a lot of cities is they have lights that are too sensitive for intersections, on a big road with a side road that doesn't have a lot of cars, and a lot of those cars end up turning right, and yet all the other traffic has to stop because there was a car that it ended up turning right but tripped that traffic signal. Just little things, and I'm an amateur at it, but I know there's been studies, and I'm sure they've come up with much more complex solutions, but the bottom line is there's not the will in Washington, there's not the will anywhere in the government, because again, like Fullerton did, a lot of cities could take that initiative into their own hands in ways to make their own citizens, the homeowners within the city lives more efficient, but it's not going on. Instead, they're all focused. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stupid sociopaths in our government that basically they're very good working with people. They can say the right things. They don't have the moral compunction, whatever the thoughtfulness to trip up and make the wrong decisions and say the wrong things in front of the people. They know what to say to make people happy, and so they get elected into government, but basically they're useless. Now they're just collecting a paycheck, and you see the symptoms of it everywhere. So that was just a brief, and sorry for the negativity, cynical example of why our current traffic system is a complete mess, a complete joke. And you might be saying, well, the money's not there, but often it is, and it's just been funneled into other things, whatever. Defense is taking up like more than half of the discretionary U.S. budget, while they cut federal funding to roads, which would have saved thousands of lives each year. So it is there, it could have been there. There could have been solutions that would have saved our time, and traffic lights may be a very small part of it, because you look at traffic every day. People have to, in Southern California, we spend hours and hours and hours every year in traffic. So the freeway system, revamping of the freeway system is another thing that is far behind within Southern California, and money should have been invested, because you see what this does. If these roads were wider, more people could get to their jobs sooner, so they would have more time with their family. They would be happier, because everybody, about road rage. Traffic is frustrating. Traffic does not make you happy, does not make you feel fulfilled. It in fact does the opposite. And so it adds a level of miserability into your life that would be avoided if they would have just, instead of investing into wars which benefit a few people, their friends basically, They could have invested into things like infrastructure that would have benefited us all. And with an investment in infrastructure, again, there wouldn't be all this waste of gas break. Less gas would be used. Less emissions would be produced. So not only would there be more gas or oil in the ground, there would be less emissions, less pollutants in the air. And it's not just CO2 that pollutes. It's, you know, the micro metals that come off combustion or from the catalytic converter. It's the dust in the brakes, carbon ceramic brakes, whatever, metal brakes, whatever you got, that creates dust, and we inevitably end up breathing it. And, you know, unless you're driving a Tesla, which filters everything. So it would make us healthier, make us happier, and these are the things that don't get talked about in the media. And that's the thing, in the media, all that the real, and I shouldn't even use this as an example, but just generally in the media, the real big questions, the big decisions don't even get talked about. And we end up talking about, media ends up talking about nonsense and really divisive issues within the media, things that are only going to divide the populace because, you know, it's divide and rule. So let's talk about, you know, LBGDQ, excuse me for not knowing the correct acronym, but let's talk about restrooms for transgender people or abortion, religious things, you know, things that infringe on some people's rights either way, or political correctness. Let's talk about all this BS that doesn't mean anything, and only aggravates us and gets us attached and enslaved to the TV, and at odds with each other, as opposed to solutions on how to make our world, our country, a better place, which there are real issues that we are being kept from that would make our world a better place, instead of, you know, creating this, basically this misery, this casual misery that we find ourselves in today. So I'm just begging people, wake up, wake up, it's all around you, wake up. I don't agree, I don't think Trump's a brilliant guy whatsoever. I read his book, I used to admire him. I read his book a long time ago, found out he wasn't a very forward-thinking individual. I don't agree with Flynn's, Michael Flynn, I think his name is, the general that was head of national security. I don't agree with him in his views of Iran/Persia. But at the same time, he helped bring to light the fact that we were supporting terrorism in the Middle East, and so he had a target on his back. And also he was pro-Russia, so he had another target on his back, because the deep state, the movers and shakers, the bakers, the military-industrial complex, they profit off of war and off of dissension and creating an enemy outside our gates to make us fear and make us feel like America and the military-industrial complex, their government, is legit. So what I'm saying is basically, you know, for whatever reason, Trump's been influenced. He's a weak guy. It just is what it is. He's mentally weak. He's not a tough guy. He pretends he's tough because he's been surrounded by pillows his whole life. But what I'm saying is, it's unfortunate. They're attacking us, and Michael Flynn's forced resignation is a symptom of them attacking us. They don't care about our safety, they care about their rule, even if they think they care about our safety and national security. And it's just scary, because there is a war on the people, and you see it in the media. It's like a big joke once you're awake, what they're saying, and these pundits that pretend like they're intellectuals, you know, pretending that they're irate that Flynn is not anti-Putin, and trying to catch him into things that would make him sound absurd. So there is a attack on us, and I'm just begging people, wake up. It's all around you. We are fish in water, we are sheep, but we don't have to cooperate with our shepherds, and we can jump out. Everyone have a wonderful day. Take care.